Well, yesterday I talked about what's new in Plasma 6.3, and since GNOME is also working on a new release and it's already in beta, that is UI and feature freeze are already in effect, why not give us a great start of a week and just talk about both in a couple of days? Like, come on, what's new? So trying out GNOME 48 absolutely feels like your typical GNOME release, this time even more so than previous times. GNOME 47 finally brought us fractional scaling, so it's pretty hard to compete with that. There are not many visual overalls that stand out immediately, but as you use it, you will start to see and appreciate the subtle upgrades on offer. After you have used it for a while, you would never want to downgrade to the previous version, as small as the changes might be. I like to think of GNOME as GNOME upgrades as the bass line in a song. You're not going to be noticing it immediately, but as soon as it's gone, like, you're gonna miss it. So let's start with the stuff that you won't directly see, but that goes to work on long-standing important pain points. On the compositor side of things, now we have support for the XDG top-level drag version 1 VLAN protocol. This finally allows applications with multiple running windows, each with its own set of detachable tabs, or to exchange tabs between them, or similar UI abstractions, via just drag and drop. Not everyone noticed, but this has been broken in Wayland for the longest time, so it should be a thing of the past now. Work has also been done on frame synchronization with support for the new commit timing protocol and FIFO protocol. Finally, there is support for the viewport protocol and some work on DRM leasing. For what it's worth, support for the system bell protocol has also been added, which means that any installed application, not just the terminal, will be able to use the system bell. That thing. We are also seeing some promising efforts in improving the experience in GNOME software. Loading updates is faster now, and the experience is better on Atomic distros with experimental support for systemd sys update. That and some improvements in the application pages, better support for review voting, and more throughout reporting of permissions that application truly get. This one was similar in Plasma. Speaking of atomic or immutable distros, GNOME now has support for systemd sysaxt system extensions, which improves certain development workflows. There are some improvements on color management as well, lower input latency for the cursor, and some performance improvements on hybrid GPU laptop setups, where an external display is wired to the secondary GPU. Those setups used to suffer from very bad performance penalties, particularly in the form of stuttering and frame drops. A lot of work is being done upstream to improve the experience when in NVIDIA drivers. I just can't speak today. NVIDIA drivers especially, so users with gaming laptops should begin to have some rest on GNOME 48. It's still not completely fixed, but it's better than what it used to be. Finally, the Orca screen reader is now more resilient and responsive when an application emits a larger number of events, and a use case that used to downgrade performance quite a lot. In short, there's support for more protocols, a decent performance uplift, and a better support for immutable distro experience that is slowly going from niche to mainstream. Partially thanks, by the way, to the uBlue project and its high-quality purpose-built images like Bazite, Aurora, and Bluefin, if that's how they're pronounced. Users seem to love those, and that includes users who have never used the Linux operating system in the past. GNOME has embraced this advancement with open arms, and results are beginning to show. Now, cool stuff. The biggest, most visible change in GNOME 48 is the inclusion of a full-fledged digital well-being functionality. Digital health is one of the most discussed topics currently, as we are starting to realize that there is a correlation between excessive screen time and adverse effects on our health, both mental and physical. More and more user-facing projects and operating systems are beginning to come up with practical ways to help us visualize how much time we are spending on our screens and helping us set healthier boundaries. GNOME 48 begins to take on such a feature, and it's a joy to use. You can find it right in the settings, much like Android's digital wellbeing functionality, and this implementation seems pretty similar to that. A few basic configurations are enabled by default, but you can enable all of them to gain the full benefits of the system. If you're not a fan, don't worry, you can entirely disable the whole thing. By default, in fact, GNOME 48 will start tracking how much time you spend with your screen on. The first thing you see in Wellbeing is a graph telling you very visually how much time you have spent on your screen today, comparing it with the rest of the week, as well as giving you insights on how that compares to the long-term average. If you care about your privacy, as you should, fear not. All of this tracking is fully local and it never gets sent over the network at all. There is not even an option to back it up. Of course, if you don't like it, you can still disable it pretty easily, which will also disable part of the well-being functionality in general. It doesn't end there though. You can then go to set a daily screen time limit, which will be 8 hours by default, to get a reminder of when you have reached it, like graph it and as an horizontal line on the screen time graph. And optionally, you can make it so that your display will become monochrome upon reaching that time limit, which is completely optional, but it's the most aggressive option available. This is not too uncommon a sight. Digital Wellbeing, Android's implementation of the same feature, has also offered this option for years. The rationale is that it is believed that turning off the color of the screen makes content consumptions less desirable, making social media instantly less interesting and removing a big part of the most popular techniques of social media websites that they use to keep our attention and keep you hooked. A careful color choice. Come on, I can do this. No, really, it has been known for a long time that the color absolutely plays a role in marketing and influencing your decisions. In particular, this is the reason why so many applications and websites use blue everywhere, a very strong shade of it even. For example, this option could help you maintain a more consistent sleep schedule if you tend to doom scroll on Reddit until it's far too late, that is me, to get properly rested for the upcoming day, or help you switch off after work when your workday is over. Is it? There is some data to show that full-time remote workers and self-employed folks in particular might benefit from this. In fact, according to the 2024 European Transparent IT Job Market Report, 37% of respondents who worked remotely stated that unplugging from work is the biggest challenge associated with working from home. Breaks are very important, both for you and for the quality of your work, if that's the capitalistic view that you want to assume. It's easy to get so absorbed in your work to forget about, breaks. But if you are like me and have been in the hunt for something a bit simpler to remind you, then there is an integrated work rave to manage your break reminders. There is that grace solution. You can now choose to be reminded to take a break with a notification and sound at any interval that you choose, and even get notified when your break ends and it's time to get back to work. GNOME will also remind you to get moving and look away from the screen for a few minutes, the small gestures that have been scientifically proven to do wonders for your health if done consistently. Another welcome change of GNOME 48 is that the image editor just get a lot more buffed. While in GNOME fashion, the default image editor is still not to be the tool for making complex edits to a picture, we now finally have the option to crop, resize, rotate and flip a picture right from the editor. It's also pretty well integrated. The UX is as clean as you would expect it, and there is support for cropping horizontally and vertically from the few most popular aspect ratios, let's say it like that. This can be very useful. As an example, when you're trying to make a desktop background from high-res image that is larger than your screen resolution, but just won't get aligned to how you want it because of a different aspect ratio, then Loop can also help you there. It can also display XMP metadata for JPEG images too, which is a small but welcome improvement too. Oh, and by the way, the credit for the artwork displayed in the preview is Bully, I think it's pronounced. There's a link in the video description as well. So, the Maps app is probably you only opened once to toy with, but maybe you even checked in a few folders like away from site to leave the spot to some application that you actually use. I don't blame you. For the longest time, whenever I needed to check something, I've always used Google Maps. It's not perfect, it's proprietary software. The map accuracy is not even close to be comparable with OpenStreetMap that Google Maps uses. That GNOME Maps uses, but it gets the basics done well. On GNOME 48, the Maps has finally gained support for its transition API. You can now get direction from 2 different points and even look at possible public transport journeys to get there, with ability to dig with as much detail as you want. Especially for being an initial support, it looks pretty nice, and it also starts paving the way into the Linux smartphone experience, for which it's crucial to have something comparable to organic maps available. GNOME Maps seems to be slowly but surely getting close. Now, before I go on and talk to you about fonts, such as a quick word from our sponsor, which is nobody. As usual, I don't do sponsored video lately, and yet I have people collaborating with me, helping me write things so that we can do more videos, and there's hardware to buy, such as like this, and so on. So if you'd like to chip in something, I have lots of various donation platforms, from Patreon to Ko-Fi to Libra, just whatever. I would also like to very briefly mention the website thelibre.news, which you can read these videos but as articles. You can subscribe to them as if it was a mailing list, like if you prefer written word to video. And there will be some extra content like interviews, podcasts, so on, so check it out. The Libre News, thelibre.news. I can do this. While not completely finalized and present in the pre-release build that is being used at the time of writing, GNOME has been busy with fundamentally overhauling their font selection. Fonts are more complex than they seem. They are not regular images, but they contain code that needs to be executed to render them properly, and they may or may not support certain functionalities or manage some edge cases properly to improve font rendering. The new font family is called Adwaita fonts, and they look great. Adwaita Sans, the main system interface font, is a slightly tweaked and improved version of Inter. This is a really solid choice. Inter has a solid and long track record of being stable in UI UX design, offering high readability and low eye strain while looking awesome. Ctrl is iconic and it will stay in our hearts for long, but seeing Adwaita Sans in action will leave you with no doubts that this was the right call. Adwaita Mono is what replaced Source Code Pro. It's a tweaked version of Yosevka, which by the way I used, slightly modified to match Adwaita Sans. Once again, it relies on a solid foundation, being based off one of the best and most loved programming fonts on the street. While these fonts may not be enabled by default right away, you can go ahead and test them right now. GNOME 48 is all about health, and you know what else can and should be kept healthy with just a few small precautions? Your laptop's battery. Lithium-ion batteries, in fact, are proven to last longer when they are charged, when they are not charged all the way. If you are fortunate enough to offer one of those laptops that have upstream support for letting you change the battery charge limit from Linux, you can do that right now from the power option in the settings app. It is generally considered useful to set the max charge limit to a value between 60 and 80 when your laptop is spending a lot of time plugged in to promote battery longevity, but it's also handy to be able to lift that limit on the fly for those times when you are going to need a little bit more juice and would benefit a full 100% charge. Sadly, there is no guarantee that your machine will support this functionality. This relies on a specific interface being exposed to the kernel, and only laptops that are meant to run on Linux officially tend to support these small details, like all these optional interfaces being exposed and ready. Still, there is no harm in trying. If the option is missing on your machine, it is not currently available, but who knows, perhaps support for your hardware will be added to the tree sometime down the line, so you'll just have to wait right now. Do you remember Decibels, the neat and minimal GTK4 music player? In GNOME 48 it has finally become the official audio player, earning the name of, well, audio player and replacing GNOME Music. Not only that, but Decibel has also received its own fair share of buffs, with support for multiple windows and shortcuts to change your playback speed, so well done, Decibel contributors. Remember many GNOME versions ago when you would get a small configuration OSD when you plugged in your headphones to let you correctly configure how you wanted to treat the audio output and microphone input? Apparently that OSD is coming back to GNOME 48, but unfortunately I was unable to test it due to virtualization not supporting this use case. This release, GNOME ships with a surprisingly pretty set of first-party dynamic wallpapers. The various performance models also got prettier icons that are a bit reminiscent of the KDE ones. So here's some more wallpapers. And here's the prettier icons. One prettier icon. That was everything, so thanks for following. Can I... teleprompter, can you switch to the next sentence, please? Okay, sorry. That was everything, thanks for following. Unless some bigger news breaks out tomorrow, I will also be releasing a video about the choice of the Department of Justice to ask US courts to divest Chrome from Google and how this affects the Linux Foundation. It's pretty interesting stuff, so if you want to be notified of it, you can click on the subscribe icon or not. That was everything for me. Yeah.